Thank you, Bob, for joining me.
The motion of striking the golf ball. Normal physics of the way a golf ball flies through the air are altered by the mental construct. And I say that because I watched it happen. And so did Mo Norman. The more refined the energy of the image of the shot to be is within its creator. I'm creating the image of the shot to be. The more energy that I can gather as it increases, I see the effect. I recall it. It's still there. Now, I did something this morning that I'll get to in a minute that is a perfect example of that.
Hey, welcome to the Fallacy and Idiocracy podcast. This is the first episode, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm grateful for you being here. And it took me a while to put it together, but here we are in the first episode. Very, very exciting. Yeah, so the purpose behind me putting this together actually is to explore science instead of scientism. So it's like really to dig into what's been going on in terms of like stats and stuff like that. I'm an ex-development engineer for General Electric. My name is Benedict Howard, benedicthoward.com. And to really delve deep into that. And to remind us also that we need to have the quote correct mindset in order to get things done. And today's guest, Bob Young, Neil Young's elder brother, is going to be coming on and talking about golf and how he, through his mind and what he learned with his buddy Mo Norman, through his mind he learned to control the flight path of the ball. More on that in just a moment. But to remind us as going into this year that aside from all of the atrocities that are going on the planet, it really is about having, a healthy mindset. And so I want to remind you to have, for instance, gratitude for every moment. Overall, just hold that space of gratitude and thanks. And at the same time, we all need to do a deep audit, especially this year. It's going to be a tough one. And I've been doing a deep audit with my nutrition last year, and I have more on my website, benedicthoward.com. But it's been very interesting to reveal at 72, I'm a high-altitude hiker. I do Ashtanga yoga. I'm pretty darn fit. Hiking up to 14,000 feet, or close on it, on Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa on the Big Island, and writing a book about it, High-Attitude Hiking, the Manas, or the Hawaiian Manas. So exercise, cold showers, fasting, sunlight, and a blue zone lifestyle. Last night we had a group of gathering over here with my musical friends, and we were drumming, and I was playing ukulele and singing. A great time. And I've been building that community for several years now. What rocks and what rocks bottom? What rocks your boat and, what doesn't do it. It's like hold on to the things that are working for you, and really learn to let go of the shiny objects, quote, / demons, that distract us from our higher purpose. So in that case, who's really steering your boat or your life? Now, here we go. Set a big vision to solve even bigger problems. And I've been doing that with 20 years of sound healing investigation and research and development and invention, and then later on with electrical healings and microcurrent biofeedback. And it's been astounding what I've been able to do with that, and more on that technology in due course. But, set a big vision for what you want to achieve in your life or in 2024. Mine is getting this podcast going and to finish up my book, hopefully to publish summertime, roughly 2024. And as I say this, it's a good time to remind myself it's always on me or on you to be you and to take care of yourself and hold yourself accountable for it, or hold people to help you being accountable. So be bold with this. This is no time to be shy and be hiding. We've gone through extreme psychological pressures with the lockdown and all the vaccine fraud and all of that stuff that's going on. More on that and the data around it. So it's always on us to do due diligence and due research. Don't be lazy on this. This is critical to your life on this planet. So whilst you're doing that, look around on those giants that are around us, and stand on their shoulders, and persist. Now, this podcast is community supported, and so your feedback to me really helps me keep me engrossed in helping to put this material together. And part of that has been like an amazing support in terms of the people that have come and I have already recorded. And so I've got some people lined up which you're going to really, really enjoy. My main website is benedicthoward.com, and I don't want to go too long into this, but it's like let's get on with the show, shall we? So meantime, I have a break point in the show, and I call it the 10 squat challenge. And it's literally to grab hold of the back of the chair, the countertop, or whatever it is, if you need it, so that you can squat down, right down, and come back up again, and really exercise those big muscles. So, whilst you're doing that, getting ready for that thought form and to break up the podcast into little chunks, here's Bob talking about, Bob talks about, initially, he's talking about the effect of COVID on the golf industry, which is kind of interesting take. But more specifically, later on, he deals with some of the metaphysics in there and what he learned from his association and friendship for 40 years with Mo Norman. He was a champion golfer, and he had 2 hole-in-ones, consecutive hole-in-ones on I forget, the Masters tournament once. He won, I think, 54 tournaments. Anyway, these guys are real experts to learn from, and it really helps to remind us that it's the power of our mind and what we think, and the universe conspires to deliver that for us. So, here's Bob.
Great, so here we are. Thank you, Bob, for joining me today on the Fallacy and Idiocracy podcast. And we're going to really dive deep with you. And we had a call a couple of weeks ago, I believe, and we got so much echo, it was like unusable. But I really learned a lot from listening to that call about yourself and Mo, and a lot about Mo Nelson, the legendary golfer.
Mo Norman.
Bob, you've just finished up a book, Mind Golf. Tell me about it and how you got in there.
Well, his name is actually Mo Norman, not Nelson, but at any rate, I started playing golf with him I met him when I was in my late teens, and then playing in amateur competition in Ontario in Canada. And then I got to know him when I became a member of the Canadian PGA. He came to the golf course that I was associated with because he was connected to another golf operation nearby and knew the head professional at the course that I was involved with. So we gradually got to know each other and played golf, and that's where the association started, and it continued into going into the into Florida in the wintertime to keep playing golf and try to get better at playing the game. And that went on for years and years and years. So I knew Mo for about 40 years. And I hit hundreds of thousands of golf balls with him.
That's amazing. Hundreds of thousands of golf balls. Wow.
Well, we did meet every morning, for instance, very close to where I am right now. And we'd hit 250 or 300 balls apiece in the morning. And that went on for at least 6 months in the wintertime. And then we'd go to another place and hit a lot of little chip shots and putts and stuff, which we didn't count. And then we'd play 9 holes and play 3 or 4 balls a hole. And that went on for, I think, 5 or 6 years in Florida. And we do the same thing in Canada in the summer, except when we were traveling and playing in, tournaments here and there. So it adds up. You do it over, a decade or something, or even a few years. It certainly it's a lot of golf balls. I figured the mathematics out one time, but it's into the hundreds of thousands of golf balls.
So tell me, for audiences that don't know about Mo, maybe you'd like to introduce the character and tell us about how you got, how he took you from where you are to where you were to where you are now.
Well, Mo passed away, I think it was in 2022, roughly 22 years ago. And we just started playing golf together. He recognized that I was someone who wanted to play good golf, and we got along fine. And I was a good player. I wasn't as good as he was, but I was good. And we just kept doing it. There was a little army of Canadian golf pros who come to Florida in the wintertime and pursue the game. And Mo and I never stopped doing that. Other people came and went. And just gradually the association built, and people in the game got used to Mo and I showing up here and there together and playing. And because we were members of the Canadian PGA and knew a lot of people, with a little bit of notice, we could go virtually to any golf course we wanted to, and we'd be welcome to go in and play the golf course. So we did that. And it's just a courtesy that exists within Professional Golfers Association ranks, and it still does to this day. There's a little tournament at a place nearby here this weekend called the Indian River Open in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. I used to play in that a long time ago, probably 40 years ago. It's the same tournament on the same golf course. So it's Mo Norman's mystique is the right word, is growing, as a matter of fact. And there's a fellow in this district whose name is Craig Shankland, who did 19 years of clinics with Mo, mostly at his own golf course and occasionally at other places around this area. Craig had a course called Hidden Lakes, which is still there, still exists. And he teaches a couple of days a week at the Ladies Professional Golfers Association headquarters course in Daytona Beach, in Ormond Beach, Florida, which is on the north side of Daytona. So he's still involved, and I guess he's probably about my age, and I'm 81. So there's one thing about golf. I started playing the game a lot when I was 11 or 12 years old, and here we are 70 years later, and you can still do that. Now, you can't do that if you're a hockey player or a football player. The body won't stand it. It collapses in a variety of places. So that's one good thing about the game, and it's grown. So one good thing about the COVID pandemic caused a growth in the population of people playing golf, because they could go out in an open field and wander around out there together, so to speak, but not in a crowded room. So they're out there in the fresh air. They didn't have to wear masks. They didn't have to do anything except walk around the golf course. And that went on. Those regulations about gatherings prohibited people from doing all sorts of things they were used to doing. But golf grew because it's a wide open space on a golf course. And again, the game grew in numbers, and those people are still playing the game. So it had a side benefit for the golf industry, the COVID. We won't try to blame COVID on the golf ball manufacturers or anything. I wouldn't go that far, but I shouldn't maybe have not even said that. But it's a fact. The golf audience grew and participants grew during COVID. So it was one attribute or one side benefit, I suppose, to the whole exercise that's still happening.
So come rain or shine, it's the squad break.
that Mo had an interesting mindset around his golf swing and performance. Maybe talk to people a little bit about that mindset and how he used that, and then maybe we can move that to how individuals who are listening to this podcast later on or reading your book can use that same mindset to benefit their own personal lives.
Well, there are sections of the book that I have written, Mind Golf, The Troubled Genius of Mo Norman, that talk about that. And I can tell you this, I was at the golf course here this morning hitting some putts. I do that every day. And I'll get to it, Mo's mindset or basis was a quiet mind. And he would say that you have to have a quiet mind. The reason for that is that you need a quiet, peaceful mind in order to create the feeling for the flight of the shot that you want to hit, the image of the shot to be. Now, he did that. I used it. It was me that created the terminology to describe it that way. Most people just say visualize the shot. That's that's fine. But how do you create a visualization? And so you see it in your own mind. Tiger Woods said you have to see it, feel it, and hit it. Now, that's true. That's what Mo Norman did. That's what I learned to do, too. What I did was I refined the way to describe the image of the shot to be. And as I was doing that, I talked to Mo all the time. So he heard what I was thinking because I was talking out loud about what I was thinking about. And at one point, I said, you have to, what I was doing was this. I would put the golf ball that's in front of me, in my mind, at the destination point of my choice, mentally. Well, obviously, the ball's still sitting there, but in my mind, the energy of that golf ball is already where I want it to be next. Then I look up in the air, and I would sense the place where the ball would begin its descent. In other words, the apex of the flight. As I say that right now, people listening to it who played golf, if they were to look into the history of the Ben Hogan Company, he created 3 lines of irons, 3 brands: Producer, Director, and Apex. When that happened, to my knowledge, there was no discussion about the significance of those words. Producer and Director are easy, but Apex? The apex was the place where the ball begins its descent. Hogan figured that out. But I never met him, and I don't know him, and I never talked to him. However, what I noticed was, eventually, I realized the thing to do is to balance yourself for the apex fall line. So, because the real target was the place where the ball went into free fall. That was the only way it would get to where you wanted it to be. Now, I'd see that image. My eyes would come back to where I was standing. Eventually, I realized that as my eyes came back, I remembered the flight of the shot that I wanted to see, and I could feel it. So in my mind, what I did was I set it up so that I kept that energy, and the motion of the act of swinging the club contained the thought of delivering the energy into the image, so that when the face of the club touched the ball and held it momentarily before it was released into the flight line, the energy that I just mentioned would be released into that. So deliver the energy into the image. Now, I did that, and I talked to Mo about it, and I said, this is, it refines it. It focuses things even more. That's what it did, and it worked. So we talked about things on that basis. The guys out who are playing golf are saying, how do you hold the club? It's not hard once you know how to hold the thing the right way and why you need to hold it a certain way. It's pretty simple. The rest of what happens has to do with what I was just talking about. When you create the image of the shot to be, whatever it is, that image and that feeling balances you for that shot. So that what you feel is in your balance. You're swinging from the ground up. because you're standing on your feet, obviously. So the lines of balance in each leg are obviously part of your sense of balance. And the more refined what I'm saying gets, the degree of certainty in your own mind about what is going to happen increases, so that you know that the ball is going to go where you want it to go. And you don't have to force anything. You set up the mental construct and learn how to use it. The better I got at it, I remember one day at this golf course, actually right here in New Smyrna Beach, Mo used to walk up to the ball, look at it, and hit it. It might take 3, 4, 5 seconds. Now, I wasn't that fast, but I understood the progression of things and assembling the image of the shot to be. That was the way I described it, and that's what I used in my book to describe it. Then, one day, for some reason, I looked at it, and I thought, I'm just going to walk up there, look at it. All of that stuff's in my mind. I understand how to construct the image of the shot to be. I'm going to walk up there, look at it, and hit it. I started doing that, and I got better right away because it condensed the energy. I wasn't standing there for maybe 15 or 20 seconds looking at it. I condensed it down to 3, 4, 5 seconds just to see what would happen, because I understood what the components of assembling the image of the shot to be were and are. They're the same now as they were 40 years ago. That doesn't change. The only thing I can think of doing now is, frankly, the energy that is drawn into that situation can obviously be increased. How you go about doing that, in some respects, is a different conversation that has to do with some people with metaphysics, but whatever you want to call metaphysics. I've never been able to figure out exactly what that term means. But it has to do with energy. And where does energy come from? Some people at some point in their life think, where does this energy come from that allows me to think and figure things out? It comes from somewhere, and it's obviously it can be increased because of, people do that. Some people increase the flow of energy somehow, and they figure things out that nobody else has figured out. But that's a fact. There is energy. In my view, there's no limit to the energy. The energy that keeps this planet doing what it's doing.
Yeah, let me jump in there for a moment. You were talking about metaphysics, and somebody who's like myself, who's been deep into metaphysics since I was in my late teens. I have a pretty good definition on it. What happens in physics is that physics basically doesn't include, it excludes the metaphysics. And there's a reason for that, which we could get into, which is really deep. But it's the metaphysics is the stuff that the physics doesn't explain. And again, there's a reason why physics doesn't explain it. Essentially what happens in there is there's a horizontal and vertical causality to physics. And unfortunately, the physics model doesn't include the vertical causality, that energy that's coming in out of the matter. And it's that energy that resides in the matter, the outside the physics, that is the metaphysics. And yeah, you're quite correct in terms of defining it as energy. And we could get deep into that too, because it's a very important substance, that energy. And I just wanted to jump in there with that, Bob.
That's interesting. The physics, normal physics of the way a golf ball flies through the air are altered by the mental construct. And I say that because I watched it happen. And so did Mo Norman. The more refined the energy of the image of the shot to be is within its creator. I'm creating the image of the shot to be. The more energy that I can gather as it increases, I see the effect. I recall it. It's still there now. I did something this morning that I'll get to in a minute that is a perfect example of that. What?
I was just saying, great.
Yeah, when when you assemble the image of the shot to be, at a certain point, I could see the air in the flight line change, like it got hotter. To me, it glowed. Now, I said to Mo one day, I can see that. He said, I see it looks like it gets hotter. And I noticed, and he did too, that in a wind, a normal player hits the ball and the wind has a certain effect on it that you can basically understand from experience hitting a lot of golf balls when the wind's blowing. What I noticed and he noticed was once the state of mind got to the point where we could see the flight line, the air alter, the ball flew easier. It flattened the arcs slightly. There was noticeably less effect of wind on the flight of the ball. And it stayed right in that flight line because that's the only place it could go. So when you say metaphysics, the physics of the situation were altered by the increase in the component that is energy, which you're calling meta. From my perspective and Mo Norman's perspective at that time, to call it meta is fine, but energy is, in my view, what it is. What I did was I looked at where does this energy come from? Well, the planet is obviously alive because, and it sustains life. I mean, we're a perfect example that that's true. And the sun shines on the earth, there's energy there. The whole construct of a solar system has the aspect of energy connected to it, obviously. I mean, that's a given from my perspective. And the sun shines on the earth. It has a positive effect. If it stops shining, the game's over. So here we are. But there's a big construct. The earth revolves, or in the solar system. So there's an energy construct that has that coherence to it. What I did, which I thought, all right, the sun shines and the earth revolves. The earth is kept alive in a lot of respects, apparently, by the sun. So what I did, for some reason, is when I got into the right frame of mind, when I was thinking about the energy and what I was doing hitting golf balls, for some reason I reached down mentally and tried to tune with the center of the earth to recognize that it has a place in it that is connected to the sun. And then through the sun is obviously connected to whatever created it. So without understanding what all of that is, I noticed it made me feel different, and I had more energy, and it made what I was doing easier. I felt lighter on my feet walking, and the colors around me got brighter. And I told Mo that. And he said, is that happening when you're trying to connect to the center of the earth? He was fascinated by all this stuff because he got it. He'd say, one day I said, Mo, everything in physics spins, it revolves, it's atomic. Okay. And the earth revolves around the sun, and here we are. I'm not Albert Einstein, and Einstein would probably find this interesting too if he were around. I don't know if he ever tried to play golf or not, but whatever. The conversation about energy goes on forever. You go back.
Let me jump in here. Let me jump in here. I have a story exactly around what you're talking, and it's the reason why I moved to Hawaii. Back in the day, this is now talking. Back in the day, let's see. I'm talking back in 1997. I came to Hawaii for the first time, and actually this became the chapter of my book, Hiking the Hawaiian Manas. And I had a lucid dream. And in that lucid dream, when I woke up, I was camping down in this bay. And when I woke up, it was like this Wagnerian concert was playing around me. There were drums, there were horns, there were like cellos, there was like this Wagnerian thing happening, right? It was like huge. And I was going like, how in the world did they get a sound system down there that clear in the middle of the night? Well, I woke up and I walked out across the grass towards, there was a jetty at the end of it. And then when I looked back, I went like, oh, I just walked through the wall of the tent. I'm obviously in a lucid dream. So I've been a lucid dreamer. So I proceeded along there, and there was this procession of kind of like out of a Kurosawa movie, like a Japanese movie. And maybe you know the director. It's like raging colors, beautiful costumes, like energy. And there was this procession of these night walkers, which I learned later were night walkers, dressed in beautiful capes. And the next thing I noticed is that my consciousness, my viewpoint was at the tip of one of their lances. And we went into the water, we went into the volcano, into the rock wall the other side, and then we went into the magma, which is underneath all of us here. Then, the next thing I know, we're connecting into the sun, and together we're in this group, and we're going up, up, up into the sun. And then the next thing, we're moving through the skin, as it were, of the sun into this amazingly beautiful floating space inside. I've counseled a lot of people who've had like near-death experiences, and it was kind of like that type of experience. I'm in this feeling of looking around in awe at these beautiful planets and star systems around me. And like you, when you connect into the center of the earth and you connect into the center of the sun, there is a different dynamic that's definitely happening when we work with energies that way. And what I was intrigued by your passage of like, hey, that ball is warming the air as it goes through it. The flight path is different. We, with our minds, can change things very rarely. And you're cataloging that and documenting it. That's pretty awesome, Bob. Thank you.
I did say, I think somewhere in that book, that the mental construct has an exterior effect. And that's what I meant by it. If I didn't say that in there, I should have, but I'm pretty sure I included that comment in the book somewhere because I realized that it was true. So it altered what the normal perception of physics would be, simply because of the of a dominant mental force at play in something that isn't normally understood that way. And lucid dreaming, years ago I could do that. I'm doing something else now, but it leads in the same direction. I understand what you're saying. It's a very interesting experience, and it's something that not a lot of people figure out how to do that. Some of the people perhaps read Carlos Castaneda's books might have learned how to do that, because it would trigger the kind of thinking that can lead in that direction.
Right. So, yeah, let's segue forward a little bit. Obviously, you had quite a life, not only with your golfing, but also with your brother Neil Young. And maybe just share some of these sort of mindful tips related experiences with your brother. I'm sure there were plenty in his concerts and his, traveling around.
Breaking the spell of the fallacies and idiocracies. 10 squat challenge. Here we go. 3, 1, 2, 2. Damn, you can do it too. Whoa.
Nice. Javan.
He certainly understands, because he creates. He's a songwriter. He creates an artistic expression, and can play it on a guitar and sing it, and plays in bands. That kind of activity has a lot of energy involved in it, also creative power, and he's aware of that. I mean, he and I have talked about some of this stuff that we're talking about, and he gets it, and there's no question about that. I mean, early in my life and in Neil's life, we both had epileptic seizures. That's an accumulation of energy that eventually finds a way to express itself. Now, the expression of through an epileptic seizure is usually dealt with some mind-numbing medication, which, frankly, you'd be better off if you never took it. He and I both stopped taking the medication. We discussed this recently. A seizure can take there's different degrees of them. However, the energy that accumulates that eventually manifests as an epileptic seizure is it's like it cleans the slate, and it opens the door to what can happen next, and the medication deadens it. Now, that he and I agree on. We were talking about it recently, and because it's, I don't know why it came up, but it did. And but with regard to his artistic expression, his traveling, I know that he's said to me one time, someplace he was playing, you can get out, you can enter a deep state of mind playing music, there's no doubt about that. He looked down and realized that he'd risen off the floor of the stage, not very far, but as soon as he noticed that, he was back on the floor again. But he told me about it. I said, what do you think happened? He said, it had to be what we were playing and the frame of mind I was in or got into. That was the only explanation. It's probably exactly what it was. So now, I mean, I wasn't trying to be a musician, but I was doing what we now realize, he and I, is similar things, hitting golf balls. And I started to say earlier, I did something at putting green today that's relevant to what we're talking about, and this is what it is. I went out there, I put the ball on the green. This is like 25, 30-foot putt this morning, a couple or 3 hours ago. I put the ball in the hole in my mind automatically. That's the way I do it. But this time I remembered something that I did years ago with full shots and with putts without realizing it. Today, on purpose, I put the ball in the hole. When my eyes came back, I physically inhaled the energy that my mind perceived, and then I let the putter move, and I sunk 2 or 3 of these putts in a row, absolutely dead center of the cup. And I didn't even get down on the ground and line it up, and this was a breaking downhill putt. The thing probably broke this much. But it was simply, I looked at it and let my mind tell me the feeling, show me the feeling for what has to happen to make this work right, and let it happen. Don't interfere with it. It's an interesting sensation. So I did that, and I've done it before, but it was very clear in my mind this morning. I thought, I'm going to go out there tomorrow, or maybe later this afternoon. It's a nice day here. I may very well go out there after we finish talking and do the same thing. And sometime in the next 2 or 3 days, I'll start hitting balls on the range where I've got a driver and the ball sitting on a tee. Now, I can look away out there, pick a number 270 or 80 yards away, and see the shot. And then when my eyes come back, I'll physically inhale the energy that I know exists there. And let the, one thing I did years ago, and I can do it again, it fits with what I'm talking about, is put the energy of the golf ball that I'm going to hit at the destination point. And then in my mind, I see that energy that's the real ball in my mind is already there, is drawing the shell of the ball that's sitting in front of me towards itself. All this does is it focuses things. And the more focused it is, the easier everything becomes.
That's very interesting. You know, some of the best shots that I do when I'm putting are with that technique. I see like a tube of energy that's from the ball to the hole. And I can, when I can connect with that tube of energy, all I need to do is just let go of the body, get the body out of the way, and let the ball go to where it knows it's going to go.
Well, some people get on a screen. I pointed out to a lot of people, when you play golf, you walk up on the putting green, you look at the putt, you know you can make it, and you do. Now, what causes that? That's the question. Right. Well, what does cause it? Well, what causes it is what we're talking about here. But then now you're going to describe the causality of it, and now you start writing it down, and several hundred pages later, you probably confused yourself and anybody else who's trying to figure it out. But it doesn't change the fact that you can walk on the putting green, so I know I can sink this thing, and you do. Now, what happens when that happens? That's a good thing. Let's get focused on that, because that's useful. I do it with the piano. I'm not a piano player.
Bob, we have a couple of minutes left before we finish up. Let's talk your book. Do you have can you hold it up maybe? If not, I can put a screen in later on. I'll do a screen share of it.
I know there's one here someplace, but I don't see it right now.
Bob has this image of these 3 lines on the cover of the book, the guy hitting the ball, and 3 lines, this apex line that he's been talking about, that illustrate that flight path that you're looking for. His book, Mind Golf, that just has been printed and released, is this extraordinary relationship that Neil and Mo developed over 40 plus years, and it's quite an interesting read. So I suggest you get that.
Website, you go to my website, you'll find it. It's Bob Young, BobYoungGolf.com. That's not a complicated idea. And then look up Mind Golf, and there it is. I think it pops up right away when you do that. BobYoungGolf.com. Anybody who wants to look into it can order the book off the website, and the audio book is there also. The audio book is, in my view, a very useful addition to the printed word because it's alive. Yeah.
Yes, and it's something I can listen to when I'm out jogging, or training. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you, Bob, for coming in again, and let's do this maybe later on next year, and update us on the new techniques that you're discovering, or the new wording that you're getting empowered to through these podcasts. Again, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
And we'll take it from there.
All right.
We're going. Okay. 3, 4, 6, 8. Come on. 9. Well, that's not take full challenge. My hand's getting cold. Keep it up, brother. Keep it up, sister. Let's end this fallacy and idiocracy.
I feel really peaceful. I feel really good. This is December the 1st, 2023. I've just completed my mission of the day to go to the summit on Kea. Rest assured, I got some real experts, like Neil Young's brother, Robert Young, talking about his new book, Mind Golf. And this really is what it's about. It's right, focusing and being able to focus on the end game. And that's what I'm doing with the Fallacy and Idiocracy podcast. Focusing on exposing the fallacies and how they've been used to manipulate us. Focusing on the idiocracies and what we can do about them. And everything that's in between. So, yeah, my name is Benedict Howard. Oops, I nearly forgot. There's going to be an incredible episode on Antarctica and the Nephilim and the inner world. So stay posted for that. Talking about standing on the shoulders of giants.